Hey, everybody. Welcome back, or if you're a first time caller, welcome to the Climb That Mountain podcast. I'm Brian Castle, as I always have been when you watch these, or if you're new to them, that's who I still am. I've got a great guest today. I'm hoping I can corral him into 35 to 45 minutes, but I know we're going to talk for 2 or 3 hours and enjoy the ride. Jeremy Holland. Jeremy Holland is not the founder in a traditional sense, but kind of is, of a revolutionary force in the startup ecosystem, startup stage. I've known Jeremy a couple of years. We were cowboys out in New Mexico for a few months, and then we hiked the Pacific Coast Trail, and then came back to North Carolina to work on entrepreneurial endeavors together. Jeremy, thanks for joining me, man. I knew we were going to have fun today.
100%. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And every time you enter in with some kind of story, it gets even better and better and better. Because I think actually how that one story started was you and I just took a walk once and met for lunch, and now it's turned into the one you just said. So I can't wait to see where this thing goes in the next year or two.
Well, one thing that's cool when you become friends with people who have lived 9 lives, you find out more about them all the time. It's interesting. And I've been learning even more about you this week than normal. It made me realize that I liked you so much when I first met you. I didn't stalk you like I do most people. So now I've kind of gone into stalking mode, prepping for the podcast. And I like to have people kind of walk us through their career. You know, you started off like I did as kind of a corporate guy, but much earlier than I did, kind of moved into the world of entrepreneurship. So tell us how you got your start.
I started off actually in telecom, and it was one of the first things that I did. And it was early telecom before it became the sexy thing that it was, which is kind of what AI is right now, right? So I was in the analog days when phones were the size and weight of bricks for a handheld. They were in the size of suitcases or mounted in cars or trucks, right? So and then we moved into the digital age. So I graduated myself through that, spent 10 years completing the industry, but launched the Sprint PCS market in Central Florida out of Orlando, which was incredible. We had 7 different competitors. We had a bunch of different offerings. It was a very fast paced environment. It was a true startup. And that was really my first kind of entry into that kind of lifestyle of when you come in on Monday, it's not how you left it on Friday or even on a Sunday, and you're doing fire drills because things change all the time. So it was just we had a great team, great market. We were always in the top 3 in the nation, and it was a really fun time. Then it came time to leave Florida. I grew up in Florida, spent my entire life in Florida. So moved up here in 2005. It was great. And when I came here too, my wife was in the medical industry. She found a job really quick because we actually sold our house at the height of a market. We stuck a sign in the yard on a Wednesday. It was sold in cash on a Friday morning, literally, out of Florida. So we just kind of packed everything up, moved up here, and we said we'll figure it out. We had some time, and so she got a job relatively quick. I was kind of looking. I'm like, I wonder what I could do. I've done telecom so far. It's been 10 years, but I wanted to see what I could do and see if I could be successful in different industries. So this industry found me, which was a manufacturing firm. We represented manufacturers. So we were actually going out to like Siemens and going out to small designers and manufacturing guys and working with them and the engineering team to help spec in and help understand what they were building and show them the proper solutions, the proper way to build it, plastics, metals. The most difficult job I've ever started, because when I first started, which I never thought I would get the job, because I was up against a guy who had 30 years industry knowledge. I had nothing. I didn't know anything about manufacturing. The only thing I ever knew about manufacturing at that point was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. When he put on the picture thing in the background, he's showing you how plants work. That's the level of my knowledge, but it always fascinated me. But so we started walking in all these plants, and these engineers are walking me through, and they're explaining all of the hundredths of a tenths of an inch of of this and that and sand castings versus other types of casting. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I think I may have made a mistake here. Like, this is way over my head. Luckily, the CEO was there with me. He's like, don't worry. All you have to know is like, this is great for this process. Let's move on. I'm like, yes. So he made it super easy. He was my cheat sheet guy. Uh, but it was incredibly hard business. They gave I was taking over a very very small territory here in Charlotte that was once a $5 million, was doing 5 million. When I took it over, it was one. So I had to basically relaunch the entire area. And so luckily with those guys, I was with them for 7 years. Great company, small team of 12 people, doing about 150 million a year in sales, which is pretty impressive for a very small company nationwide. But I grew it not only into out of Charlotte and North Carolina, but into Eastern Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, and then Chicago and a few other states as well, which is really great. So that was another entrepreneurial type venture because it was all on me. I was paid 100% commission. It basically, there was a little salary that tiered down, but it was all about what you did. And it was about how you structured your business, how you created partnerships, how you were able to kind of connect the dots with different companies and, be a differentiator out there, right? Versus all the people that are doing the very same thing.
So what kind of lessons did you learn in those kind of early corporate days that you've kind of brought forward with you?
I mean, I think it's something that I'm always learning, even to this day. To be honest, it's never quit. I don't have quit in me. And so if I hit a brick wall, I'm going to find a way around it somehow, some way. And it doesn't matter how long it takes me, but I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go through it in most cases, or I'm just going to find a way to pivot around it. I think that's where a lot of people struggle, especially with any kind of business, is you hit some hard times and some people just want to retract. And I've had those days. Having good people around you, but it's also just having that fortitude to keep pressing.
So I also noticed you had done some fractional CFO work. You had done some software development. And then, of course, when I met you, you had a venture doing recruiting and staffing, your own company. How did you become that man of all seasons?
It's one of those things where I think entrepreneurship runs in my blood. My dad was a small business development, owner. He had three small businesses, and I worked with him and I learned the way, and I've always had it in me. And one day I didn't know what it was going to be, but it was going to be something. Nobody really finds recruiting. Recruiting finds you, and people that are in the industry will be shaking their head up and down like that. It's exactly how it works. It's a very tumultuous business. It's very difficult. It's extremely entrepreneurship, and you have to be very opportunistic, and you have to make sure that you're spending your time wisely and also developing partnerships that are not about immediate reward, but how you stay successful is building a partnership off of people that you can help down the road and by understanding where they are. And so I fell into this. It was a guy that was actually recruiting me for another business. And I just wasn't happy with the culture of the company he had kind of matched me up with. He's like, you know what? I've gotten to know you for a little bit, Jeremy. And we spent a couple of months together at this time, getting to know each other and try to place. He goes, why don't you come work for recruiting? I'm like, I'm not a recruiter. There's no way. It doesn't even sound fun. Like, I don't want to do that. He's like, no. Like, you'd be the business development guy. You'd go out and you'd find new business, create new markets, and develop. I'm like, well, all right, that sounds kind of cool. And so I did it, and I loved it. And it brought me back to actually what it did was connected my two vastly different experiences. So in telecom, where it was really fast moving, I loved that, and I missed that so much, and kind of the technology piece to a degree. But the manufacturing was a very long sales cycle, very partnership driven, multi different decision makers. So that was very different as well, something I had never done before. And so that industry put both of those together for me. And I thought it was really great. So what I realized is I love this industry. Not all companies do it well. I'll do this one day. But then back to recruiting. So I said, the best way to do this and the only way to really change the industry is to do it yourself, right? And so that's what I did. And that's what I started off doing. And then lo and behold, as I'm doing that business, I kind of come across this guy that has this company called Startup Stage that he's literally starting up himself.
So I'm glad you brought up Startup Stage, my man. Let's talk about that part of the journey, the most recent part of your life and work journey. a little over a year ago, you gave me a cool opportunity. I'd actually been bugging some VC and private equity folks in my network. I was craving doing some due diligence work through the marketing lens. And, and any marketer knows you've got to really assess businesses and find out what makes them tick and be able to do that successfully and do it fast. And so you gave me an opportunity to do some due diligence on the artist known as Startup Stage. And I came back after a few days and I'm like, no, don't buy this thing.
I remember that day.
And
I usually listen to you. This time I
A
didn't.
few weeks later, you come back and you said, I bought that company, man. And I said, oh, so my advice is as worthless as I suspected it might be. And you said, no, I used it, to do the deal how I wanted to do the deal. And I thought, okay, well, there's another use case for that advice. What's made this thing work and what's made this thing successful is, like, I think you've got a kind of a classic business school case of a strategic pivot. And you've done a couple of them. This thing started off as a community and a resource for entrepreneurs without really monetizing it. Like, these things happen in the digital world, right? And then and it was kind of up to you as you bought it to figure out how to monetize it. And so at first it was trying to figure out how to monetize the community concept. Then you realize, okay, well, I've got some components of this thing that have some value in the digital world, like giant mailing lists. And so you kind of thought of it as a kind of like a media advertising play. But then at some point, just a few months ago, you took this thing into kind of uncharted territory. It's now a disruptive engine in the startup ecosystem. As people joined the community at Startup Stage, you didn't stay behind the scenes or anonymous like these platforms often are. They almost always are. You broke the fourth wall, like in Ferris Bueller, where he would periodically talk to the audience.
Oh, I love that. I never knew there was a name for that. That's actually pretty
when
cool.
you were breaking that fourth wall and getting in and talking to people, tell us about the kind of that feedback journey, because I feel like that's what got you here.
The way this whole thing started was completely by accident. And actually, even how Startup Stage really started itself from the person that I bought it from was completely by accident. So he was a guy named Luke, incredible guy. We became really close friends. We actually met through just kind of connecting with other folks, right? And I was running my other business at the time, and I was into startups. We had a growth component that was part of Ethos Link 2, growing small and medium-sized businesses. And so anyways, we reached out, we connected, hit it off right off the bat. And I heard his story, of what he was doing. And what fascinated me was he was a big corporate attorney, and he says, I love startups, and I have this model that is absolutely amazing. And it's basically corporate level legal advice. I'm not really sure you can call it advice legally, but legal something. But a startup budget, right? And I'm like, oh, that's really great. And so I said, tell me about how this whole thing got started. It just evolved, but it started on Twitter when it was actually called Twitter before we now know it as X, right? It fascinated me that all he did was he would get on there and start liking other founders and what they were doing. And he just had this passion, and he had that kind of magnetic personality too, where people started loving what he was sending out. And so he's like, wow, I've got like 8,000 plus followers, right? And so what am I going to do with this? And so then he turned it into a website. And the whole idea behind it was to really kind of get his marketing out there, to be a fractional attorney. Well, he was doing a terrible job at letting people know that he's a fractional attorney at the time, but like he also loved the startups and the fact that they were coming to him to get support. So he wanted to kind of do a pre-product hunt kind of solution and kind of fill in this really early market, because it kind of fit into the fractional legal, setting up your business, funding, things like that. That was where he and I actually met. We agreed that we have to do something together, because I loved it. He had just turned it over to Startup Stage. He actually trademarked the name, which was brilliant, obviously being an attorney. And so I loved the name. I loved what he was doing and what was coming, which was this new website at the first part of the year. So he said, "Hey, this is awesome." Because I talked about the growth engine side, and I'm like, why stop there, right? If people are coming to Startup Sage and they're going to be coming to your website to be promoted, why not also help them grow their business, right? And he's like, he loved the idea. So I pick up the phone, I call him, and I'm like, "Hey, Luke, what's going on? Let's get together. Like, how are we going to do this? I'm super excited." He's like, "Well, it's been kind of exciting over here too. Number one, I'm a new dad, and so that's been turning my world upside down." He goes, "Corporate law is crazy." But the third most interesting thing is the fact that I had some guys that I connected with through Startup Stage that want to back me. And they've got this really successful business and they want to come in and they want to do this. So I'm like, first of all, I felt like I got punched in the guts, like three different angles. Like I had no idea what was happening. But I was also happy for him at the same time. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's incredible." But I'm like, "What are you going to do with Startup Stage?" He goes, "I have no idea." He goes, I'm just now digesting this myself. And so I think this was like on Monday or Tuesday. And by the end of the week, we just both talked through it enough. And I knew how much he had put into it. I knew the passion, I knew the quality that he was going for, which aligned perfectly with what I wanted to do. And the more I thought about it, and obviously, you're one of the guys I reached out to, and you're like, "Nope, don't do it. Nope, it's terrible. Here are all the reasons why this is a bad idea. You don't want to go down this road." And I was like, there's just something inside of me that says there's something here.
Well, let me jump in. So my advice was kind of predicated on the use case at the time, which was how it would bridge clients into your existing venture. You
Right.
saw beyond that.
I did. And obviously, it worked out well. And he was in a position where he couldn't do it. And I was in a position where this thing isn't making any money. So what makes sense, right? And so we came up with a very favorable deal back and forth. When I, at the end of the week, I was just like, I have to buy this thing. And you could almost hear the phone drop from his. He's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, I think I have to. Like, to your point, I mean, when I took it over, it had a newsletter component to it. It had this new website that had nothing to really do with what I wanted to go with it. And so I was trying to kind of piece some things together and try to pick up where he left off and improve and try to, try to maybe make it a competitor to Product Hunt was kind of our first iteration, but do it a little bit better. It was one of those situations where we just wanted to be the trusted brand for startups to kind of come to get advice, right? That was always the initial kind of idea. I still see that digital hand raising up, like, "Hey guys, like, where do you go to get trusted support these days?" Like, and I couldn't find it either, to be honest with you. As I bought this business, I started realizing that, wait a minute, there isn't a space where it's a truly private place where you could literally say, "Hey man, I don't even know if I made the right decision buying this business. I need some help," right? Because as founders, we go through a lot. We're wearing a lot of different hats. We have a lot of joy and we have a lot of pain, and it's always happening, right? Sometimes in the same day.
I would guess we might call what your good friend who developed the original concept, that was 1.0. You tried a 2.0 and a 3.0. So now at 4.0, this thing has taken on wings and is starting to soar. People in the audience who follow the startup scene know that accelerators are out there and take often will select people who apply, take equity. They're going after companies that are kind of beyond idea stage and are starting to get some proof of concept, some traction. And it works for a lot of people, but it also doesn't work for a lot of people. So you're trying to be an alternative. And so tell us, how you've arrived at the anti-accelerator model and the what's in it for me, for all the different participants in this little you're kind of creating an ecosystem within the ecosystem.
I think that's probably a great description, but I don't know. There's just something fun about being the anti-accelerator. I don't know what it is, but I really like that. And actually, I believe you're the one that probably coined that phrase for me. And I loved it, and I took it and ran with it because People kept asking me like, so all right, I see you're not like a Product Hunt or an AppSumo, but you're kind of like a growth engine. Are you an accelerator? Are you an incubator? And I'm like, I'm not really sure there's a word that at the time, anyways, that really describes what we do. Yes, we do the same things that accelerators do. We do some of the same things that incubators do. However, we do it better. We do it cheaper. We don't take your equity. And so, like I said, I think it was you that came up with the word, you're like the anti accelerator. And I'm like, I love it. That's exactly what we are because we do not take equity. And so here's the thing being a startup founder, talking to them every single day, they've been bruised and battered for over a decade or more, right? Just with people that are tossing stuff that doesn't work at them. Hey, buy this, you'll get to 100K MRR in 3 months, with this tried and true package. It's got a brake lights warranty on it. Don't call me with any issues. I'm moving on to the next one. I don't care. And the product probably is okay. Who knows? But it's not necessarily made for them, right? So they're off the shelf with being sold products from faceless companies, and there's no guarantees, there's no anything. Yeah, it's cheap, but a lot of cheap sales add up to a lot of money for people that don't care about partnerships or really care about people's growth. And so that kind of coupled with what I was seeing in social media with all of these serious founders that I call them, kind of raising their hand, like, almost like as if they're pushing themselves up against on top of the group saying, all right, this is noisy. Just point me in the direction of like the door where I know the right people are that could help me do what I got to do. Cause I don't really care about what your issues are. I've got my own issues and I'm trying to be successful. And so I'm like, as I started looking for places, there wasn't one. So I'm like, guess what? We're going to do one. We're going to build one. We're going to make this the trusted source for founders to go to scale and grow their business, right? What happens to, the 99% that hit the glass wall because it didn't quite make that class, right? How many ideas failed to come to fruition because, they didn't have the right funding opportunities or they didn't have the right people to support them and help them and they couldn't afford to do it. And so we just made this thing, this beautiful environment, ecosystem, right? Is we're all in this together with the fractional leaders like yourself as a CMO and content. And we've got, everything that an enterprise has at a C-suite level, down to the go-to-market strategy. What's interesting is a lot of startups, as they're kind of ratcheting up the MRR ladder, they'll bring in somebody like you as a CMO and you'll set that strategy at a very early level, not knowing what's really going to change in the next 6 months, right? So by the time they execute, your strategy is technically outdated and we have to go back and do some things, right? And go back and redo it. That's more money, more cost for them. So what really makes this kind of cool is when a founder comes into us at really any membership level, they get a co-founder, right? So if you're on our basic, you get 1 hour a month to talk with a fractional co-founder. It's part of the membership to help understand where that business is going and to help understand what their goals are. And if they want to sell because they've got 6 other projects they want to work on, or if they need funding because they want to take this thing to IPO and Mark Zuckerberg it and run it, and be a huge entity. We see it all, right? And so as they go through different levels, they get more and more support and more open fractional leadership support from experts like you. But the best part is we put it all together. So if they're starting with you, we're bringing in chief revenue, we're bringing in the go-to-market team. As you and I talked about before, you as a CMO and you're working on a CMO project and you learn some things about the industry, okay, great, I know what I want to do, but then having the go-to-market guys that know where that company fits and what sets them apart from their competitors really gives you an extra edge. But it really creates a more holistic solution for the founder. So they're only spending the money, which is a fraction of what it would normally be with anybody else, but they're getting a more holistic solution too. So it's a win-win, right? And so the part of this that makes it great is we have a private community. You don't have to go through Slack and you don't have to go through X because those are still very noisy hallways. But this is a cool spot where it is private. It is just for members to kind of really get the help that they need, specifically if it's one-on-one with you or our CTO or CHRO, whoever it is, and with another co-founder. and kind of just bounce some ideas, make sure that they're on the right path, but also to talk to other founders that are also really extremely serious about growing their business.
Jeremy, I wanted to tell you how this thing really is disruptive, and I don't use that word lightly. The 1.0 is the closest thing, the kind of the pre-monetization thing that the founder created. And then the 2.0 and the 3.0 were a little bit more conventional. And then the 4.0, you're letting your freak flag fly and going, hey, to hell with that. This is going to be disruptive, and I'm going to offer something different. And I kind of wondered what kind of founders would come through the door. I've worked with private equity, currently work with a private equity firm, VC firm, and part of the joyride aspect of my existence right now professionally is enjoying meeting all these founders, hearing their stories, and just hearing how innovative they are. I wondered what kind of founders will be coming through this. Hey, we're anti and we're this and we're that. It's the same kind of people.
What's amazing is how people are responding to this. And so, what I didn't realize what was going to be a potential problem or roadblock or hurdle is that this sounds way too good to be true. There's nothing out here that does this. There's nobody that does it this way. It's only these companies that charge that. And if you're not taking equity, how are you making money to stay alive? Like, there's all of this. And I had no idea, right? So, because they've been fed, everyone's fed, this is it. And if you don't make it, there's really nowhere else to go. And really, there isn't, right? There's this huge chasm that needed to be filled, and we're filling it, which coincidentally enough this year the VCs and the PEs are like, hey, guess what, we're not looking for Series A and above, we're going for pre-seed because that's where it's at. But the bottom line is it's founders helping founders, giving back, but at the same time, like, it's, we're not gouging people with crazy fees, we're not taking money that and promising them a lot of stuff, we're not going to kick them out of their own company because they haven't met certain goals. We don't preach theory. We don't do any of these things that a lot of accelerators do. What we do is we like understand who they are, where they're at, where they're going, if it's a realistic goal. And if so, great. Here's the exact plan of how we're going to execute it. But here's the thing, nobody else does this either. No one implements. We implement. And that is a differentiator for us as well, because the best laid plans, if not executed as designed by the people who designed it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work well. It's not going to work the way it's intended. It's going to be inefficient. And so by adding that very core component of, hey, we built it, we're going to help you install this thing so that you can get going and start seeing the ROI benefits today, tomorrow, right? Instantly. And you can start seeing that MRR grow, right? And you start seeing that cost, that overhead come down. And so that's the biggest benefit I think that we bring to the table. This is one of my most favorite things to do is when I talk to founders, we just start having a conversation and I start asking them a couple of questions. And after about 30 minutes of a phone call, they often leave without me asking anything, like, oh my gosh, I have learned more in this 20 minutes than I have all year of starting and running this business. And thank you so much. Now, I don't know if they end up signing up or not, and maybe they will when they're ready at certain points, but that feeling of just giving them that knowledge, because what we're doing is asking them questions, their eyes get big, and you're teaching them something. And that when their eyes get big, the immediate sentence that follows that is like, I had zero idea what I didn't know. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize all the different things that really go into a great brand voice. Little things like that people don't think about. And so it's stuff that we like to bring to the table and educate our founders with, but it's all the stuff that we learned along the way. We had to trudge through it. Some of us had, along the way, a few guides here and there. So by us guiding them, that two lefts and a right or whatever it is in their situation, we prevent that. And I think it was one of our fractional partners said it best. Was we were talking about how much we enjoy talking to young founders and helping them kind of grow. He said, you know what? The most satisfaction I get is it's not a paycheck. It's not all this other stuff. Yes, we have to feed our families and all that kind of stuff too, but it's not seeing another star drive off the cliff. And I'm like, man, that's well said. That's exactly what it is. And so those 20-minute calls are actually the best ones because, we're able to help people. And it's not about signing up or all that kind of stuff too, but it's just that help. And then building that trust because again, startup stage is the trusted place to go.
I want to go off script a little bit and ask you how you've been mitigating. I think you've taken on a challenge that most PEs and VCs don't put on themselves. Most of those kind of operations are keeping their investments pretty tight within certain segments that they really dial into and research the hell out of. And through experience investing, they kind of decide, let's go narrow into these few industries, or due to their investment thesis, they'll kind of create platforms, where they're acquisitive and they're buying companies with the notion of merging them into a previous acquisition or two or three and creating a much larger business out of those. So you have to date been industry agnostic. How do you make sure you can really bring value and serve founders while staying industry agnostic?
It's an actually incredible question. What's interesting is this question was recently asked by a founder that I've been talking to and helped guide because she's building this really cool product for actually my old industry, right? The recruiting industry. It's an AI product. And so she was just kind of getting some high level knowledge. And she kind of asked me the very same question, like, how can you help SaaS and how can you help all these different industries like machine learning and AI and all of these, right? Manufacturing, consumer product goods. And it's like, and my answer, the real quick answer is this: I can't, but my team can because I was very thoughtful in everybody that I wanted to bring into the fractional circle, and every one of them come from different backgrounds. And so that's what makes this super incredible is it's like this tornado of success that we've built like in the center of this circle, right? And we're putting founders in it. And by the time that they're done, I mean, the turnaround has been crazy. You and I have been working with a woman who's going to be probably the next billionaire at some point. She's absolutely come up with this incredible idea. She came to me, weighted shoulders. I could just see her on the camera. She was just extremely burdened by the MRR not coming in. The burn rate was really high. And within a week and a half, she was light and bright because we took care of the funding issue. We showed her that she didn't actually need as much as she thought. In fact, she didn't even need any. We got her on the right track. We showed her all the low-hanging fruit of the things that she wasn't even thinking about from a revenue perspective. And so now she's off and running, and she sees what before which she thought she could only see next year, she's now going to see within the next 90 days, which is blowing her mind. And so now she's also able to focus on selling her business as the powerful CEO that she is. So it's stuff like that just seeing something from a different lens and just from a different way. When you're wearing all the hats, you get bogged down. We all have blind spots that get created. And that's, I think, the most important thing that we do as a team, because you're going to see something different than I see it. And likewise with everybody else, right? So by bringing us all in, it's a powerhouse group.
So, Jeremy, I have a greater appreciation all the time for your rather relentless technology focus. You're an early adopter, you're a fast adopter. And in contrast to my own circumspection with regard to technology, I find myself integrating some and then, getting a tasting plate and then chewing on it probably too long in a lot of cases. But you seem to dive right in. What's been your motivation through the years? Is that a natural thing? Have you always been kind of an early adopter?
I don't know what it is, especially when it comes to technology. I've always loved, that's what really drew me into the cell phone industry. Like I thought it was super cool because the phones got really small and it was just you're wearing this thing that because it was like back in the pager days and it was just really cool. So I've always loved the early adoption stuff. I never really got super technical with it, but I was my family and everybody I know, like I somehow become their IT guy. Like, hey, I got this blue screen or I've got this and I'm just like reboot. Oh, it's working. Great. Like, and then I become the IT guy. Right. And so it's crazy. And then they all expect me to remember their own passwords, which that's crazy too. But early adoption stuff, yes, it's a joy of mine. It's crazy because I was having a conversation this week with another one of our partners, and we were going back and forth about AI adoption, right? And we see a ton of AI products, right? We saw a lot last year that were just really AI wrappers. They've gotten a lot more sophisticated now, and now we're really getting into AI has obviously advanced a lot since last year because we're moving quick, but they're more real products, right? There's no more wrappers that are thrown around, but like how can we really make these things an all-in-one kind of solution for XYZ, right?
So you talk to a lot of bright people.
I do.
You see a lot of big ideas. People are adopting technology in all kinds of crazy ways to make their little impact on the human condition happen better and faster. Give us a few reasons. I know it's a time of confusion for a lot of people. I don't feel quite as confused when I think about the business world and my place in it and the people I get a front row seat kind of watching perform within it. So, can you give the audience some reasons to be bullish on the future of our economy and specifically entrepreneurship's contribution to the economy?
I think like I kind of explained my situation, right? Where AI to me has opened up the world because I don't have to know how to code. I have to know how to prompt the AI to get out something that I want. But now I have an outlet to have all these really cool ideas, whether they're going to work or not, but at least test them out without having to go through somebody else and then not really get what I'm going for. But I am in full control. I think this has opened up a tremendous amount of opportunity for all kinds of things that are going to we're talking about disruptive, right? And just the small thing that we're doing within, the startup ecosystem, but the businesses that we're seeing and the ideas that we're seeing and we're hearing about are absolutely they're mind blowing. And it's actually extremely fun to have these conversations with people that get really excited because the one thing we ask them is like, why this? And there's always a story of why this means something to them, right? And that's their passion, what's feeding that passion. And the founders that we talk to, it's not just about a quick buck. It's about, I've always loved this and I wanted to do this, but I never had a way to do it. Now AI has allowed me to do at least a majority of it, or at least get the general idea vetted out and out of my head and onto a place where other people can help out and then get this thing going. Right. And so AI is just this next stage, and it's just going to be a game changer across all industries, manufacturing, everything. It's going to be absolutely wild.
So, is what you're saying, in effect, that founders' ability to harness technology has the opposite effect? It unleashes their creative spirit because when they're harnessing technology, they're turning over a lot of tasks to the technology so they can focus on creativity, creative problem solving. Is that what you're saying?
Yes and no. So yes, obviously there is a creative component to that, but not everybody is creatively licensed, right? And really thinks that way. You have that business side of individuals too. And so where AI and some of that adoption stuff comes in is just the optimization of the workflows. We help our founders with, AI agents within they can access within the community. We provide them with pre-vetted tools so that they're not if they're worried about shopping for different things. We actually vet them. We put them in there because we use them and we know that they work and they actually are as advertised, which is great. All those things considered as we look at different products and vet them out, I'm seeing it on both sides again. And I think there's a melding because you have now non-technical CEOs or founders that are becoming more technical because of AI. And you're having just the pure technical founders slash CEOs kind of be more creative, or be more business minded. I'm sorry, and analytical at certain things. And they're able to do more and make decisions faster, but more importantly, data backed decisions. But there's still a lot of things that are misinterpreted. People also think that let's not hire anybody unless you can prove to me that AI can't do it, and thinks that it can just replace everybody right now. We're not there. There's a lot of certain things that you have to know how to do, right? Certainly, are there going to be some changes down the road? Absolutely. But just like the Industrial Revolution changed the way we did business then and how we do business now, it's the same thing. We'll all adapt and we're all going to end up embracing this thing. And I think it's going to be amazing.
Jeremy, thank you so darn much for coming on the podcast, man. I knew this would be an absolute joyride, just like every week doing work with you to impact entrepreneurs.
Man, listen, I truly appreciate being on this. I think it's great. I love talking with you. It's been incredible. It has been a ride as usual, but I appreciate you helping us get the word out. I think that's the biggest thing. Is right now we just want to make sure everybody knows about us, has the opportunity to know that we exist, right? That there are other options, and it's starting to come in. The floods are starting to rise.
Awesome.
Over here on our end, but we love it. Those are good problems to have. And so we definitely appreciate your support. We love you as a partner. The work that you guys do at Park Life is just, I mean, there are no competitors, I mean, that can touch what you guys do. And as versatile as you are and how smart your team is, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. You guys do more better than some of the largest firms I've ever met and done business with in the past. So I appreciate you very much, and humbled that you actually said yes when I asked you to be a part of this thing.
Well, we feel very fortunate to be working with you. And like I said, you're attracting some great founders. These are people like yourself who are worth amplifying and seeing how far you can help them go. And it's part of why we have such a cool mission and why we're aligned. So thank you, man.